Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We are so pleased to have you all come out for this webinar on wildfire preparedness in Benton County. And we're really happy to have our partners in crime here, whose faces are going to pop up on the screen for a minute to say hello. My name is Kayla Bordelon. I am the Willamette Valley Regional Specialist for the Oregon State University Extension's Fire Program. It's a mouthful. I'm hosting tonight, and I'm here with partners from the Oregon Department of Forestry, the Philomath and Corvallis Fire Department, the County Emergency Management Office, and coordinators from local Firewise communities as well. And we're here with you, so thank you again. And we're going to start by everyone taking a big stretch up because it's after work and we might need it. I see you, Leo and Jacob, not stretching with me. And then a pat on your backs, all of you, for making it to this webinar. It is evening, you could be doing any number of other things, and you're prioritizing preparing yourself, your family, your home, your community for wildfire season. So, you know, that's worth a lot to us, and we're really appreciative of your time. So here are the goals that we have tonight. We want to introduce you to the friendly faces of fire in our local area. We want to share local emergency planning and fire response structure so that you know more about kind of what's happening behind the scenes when a fire starts in Benton County. And we want to discuss ideas and resources to help you prepare for fire. And we'll do that by sharing some tips and tricks, but also by answering your questions during a big Q&A session that we have. And to meet all these goals, we have this lined up for you all tonight. I'll provide a quick introduction and kind of set the stage, and then we're going to have lightning presentations from local fire professionals. And we'll follow that up with a pretty big panel discussion and Q&A with you all. So you can be thinking about questions that you have. And on logistics briefly, this session is being recorded and it'll be uploaded to OSU Extension's YouTube site so that you can see it in the future. You can share it with your neighbors. This also means that you don't need to be, you know, taking notes on everything right now. Feel free to just sit back and listen to the soothing voices of all of these folks tonight. And then also we have, do we have closed captioning on? If we are going to turn closed captioning on if it's not already, and if you want to turn it off, you can go to live transcript and hide subtitles, or it may be a little easier than that and just say turn off closed captioning depending on the system. And finally, your audio is muted, but we would love to hear your questions. So use the Q&A portal to ask questions. If you put them in the chat, sometimes we lose them. So the Q&A portal would be really helpful. All right, sound good? Let's get moving. All right, so to set the stage, we're going to start really close to home with the Chip Ross fire in Northwest Corvallis. And, you know, really from the outset, I want to say that wildfire can be scary, especially when it's knocking on your door. I know that many of you here in the webinar and also in our group of panelists and presenters, you know, had some really personal experiences with this fire and with other fires in the area. So, you know, if thinking about fire tonight stirs up emotions for you, then you're human, and that's okay. If it becomes too much, feel free to step away and perhaps watch the recording at another time. But tonight we'll offer lots of ideas and resources for how to prepare to keep yourself safe during wildfire and reduce those, you know, negative outcomes. And really the story of the Chip Ross fire is a success story in many ways. It's about your fire service coming together and putting out this fast-moving fire that was right up close to, you know, Corvallis, right, really populated area, without the loss of life or the loss of homes. So September 5th, 2014, a brush fire was ignited just near Chip Ross Park uphill from the Timber Hill Meadows apartments in Northwest Corvallis. And, it was really hot, dry, windy, and the fire just took off. And because of those weather conditions, our fire agencies were really swamped when that call came in around 8:30. But the fire agencies really rallied from all over the area, and it included the agencies that are joining us tonight: Corvallis Fire, Philomath Fire and Rescue, aided by Oregon Department of Forestry, who are also on the call tonight. In total, over 100 firefighters responded to this fire, worked through the night, and extinguished the blaze, right at the kind of footsteps of these neighborhoods. That night, hundreds of neighbors were evacuated from the fire, and an evacuation shelter was set up at Benton County Fairgrounds. And the fire was put out only feet from Timber Hill Meadows apartment complex after it burned 86 acres. Okay, so you can see in that picture in the middle, that's the apartment complex. So, this effective response by our local fire agencies really allowed Corvallis to avert some significant negative outcomes. Still, one home had exterior damage because of flying embers that ignited the exterior of their home. The suppression cost of this effort was estimated over $50,000. And, there's no doubt that those who were evacuated, those who were affected, carry memories of a really scary night with them. So what can we learn from this experience, this local experience? What can it tell us about the future with fire here in Benton County? I'd say there's three big factors here that can help us understand our fire future. One has to do with ignition, one with weather, and then a third with kind of the intersection between natural vegetation and human communities. So in terms of ignition, the ignition source for the Chip Ross fire was human. It was teenagers with a lighter, kind of daring each other to light grass on fire. And that aligns with a trend. 86% of wildland fires in the Willamette Valley and in Benton County in particular are human caused. This map here shows ignitions in Benton County between 1992 and 2019. All the red dots are human ignitions. The yellow dots are for lightning ignitions. So these human ignitions, they happen and they tend to increase with population size, okay? But, not all ignitions become 100-acre fires. And the weather also really influenced the fire behavior here. September 5th, 2014, really hot, dry, the fuels were dry. It hadn't rained in a month, windy. This poses extreme fire danger. It's what we call red flag conditions. And we're seeing that, fairly regularly during our late summer months. This image here is from a weather report just last September 8th, when we had a red flag warning that was, basically covering the whole west side of the Cascades. So yeah, these periods of hot, dry weather are increasing. And I just wanted to share, this graphic here shows the deviation from average temperatures during the 20th century. So you can see that the period since 1991, it's been a lot hotter than what used to be the norm in the 20th century. And this is really leading to more days with extreme fire danger. And then the final factor in the Chip Ross fire that gives us insight into our fire future is the intersection between the natural and the built environment. Now, historically, the understory grasses of the Willamette Valley, oak prairies and woodlands, they burned really frequently, every 2 to 7 years in a lot of places. And these are what we kind of consider good burns. They served a little bit like a spring cleaning for this environment. They minimized the buildup of fuels that could lead to more severe fires. And those burns were often facilitated actually by indigenous peoples of the Willamette Valley to promote biodiversity, to stimulate the growth of first foods, among other objectives. So now, of course, it's much more complicated to have these good burns, right, on the landscape in the Willamette Valley, because basically we've put human communities all over the place, right? So you can see in this photo of the Chip Ross fire where the park and the McDonald Research Forest, they're directly adjacent to these really densely populated areas in Corvallis. So now when natural vegetation like grasses catch fire during extreme weather, it turns from a natural ecological process into a big threat to our communities. So, all that said, what we've come to realize is that we have a fire problem. And it hasn't gone away since 2014. In fact, summers are getting hotter and drier as we continue to expand the human footprint into wildland areas. Population growth continues. With the population growth, more potential ignitions from accidental human causes. So our fire problem here in Benton County is only getting worse with time. So what do we do about it? That's what we're here to talk to you about tonight. And here's really the main point that I want you to take away. There are a lot of smart, resourceful, dedicated, service-driven professionals in the fire community here that are addressing the fire problem. But we can't do it without your help. And the best way you can help firefighters to help you is to prepare yourself, your family, your home, your community for wildfire season. So tonight you're going to hear from some of those smart, dedicated folks about planning for and responding to wildfire and, the ways that you can really be part of that solution. And we're going to kick it off with Rich Salza, the Deputy Fire Chief of the Philomath Fire and Rescue, who's here to tell us about local fire districts preparing for and responding to wildfires and tips that he has for you to make it easier for firefighters to protect your home. So Rich, you ready to share your slides? Looking good. I can't hear you yet, but so far so good.
Sorry, I had to find my unmute button amidst all of the screen sharing and on-screen sharing. So hi, everyone. Thanks for your patience. Again, my name is Rich Salz. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief of Philomath Fire and Rescue. And Kayla, you actually set a kind of a big scene here. I was actually here at the Philomath Fire Department having my interview the day of the Chip Ross fire. So I had actually moved into the community just at the end of August of that year, down here at the fire department, and everybody sort of left the department all of a sudden. And you could tell that day, I've been in the fire service since 1975, and you could just tell that conditions were absolutely ripe. Now, what people didn't necessarily know is at the time that the fire happened, the Corvallis Fire Department was actually running other calls. That does happen. People call 911 and other things happen just because, we have a large wildland fire doesn't keep anything else from happening. So one of the first departments that actually arrived on the scene was the Philomath Fire Department. And the opportunity that this was to really demonstrate, and why I brought this up now, is to let you understand that there's several fire departments within Benton County that actually all work together as agencies to basically keep people safe and to respond to natural disasters such as this. So you'll hear from some of these folks tonight, but just so that people understand how Benton County is protected by fire agencies, it give you a little bit of tour. So you've got the Corvallis Fire Department, which is a city fire department, and they also manage the Corvallis Rural Fire Protection District, which is in and around and actually spills over into Lynn County. And then we have Philomath Fire and Rescue. We have Adair Fire and Rescue. We have Alsea Fire and Rescue, Monroe Fire and Rescue, Palestine, which is actually contracted to the Albany Fire Department, North Albany, and Lyon, which is protected by the Albany Fire Department. Hoskins, Kings Valley Rural Fire Protection District, and Blodgett Summit Rural Fire Protection District. So those are all of the different departments and districts that are actually comprised of the firefighting background here in Benton County when it comes to the fire service serving the county. But there's also our partner agencies, and that includes the Oregon Department of Forestry, which is the part of the Western Oregon District. We also have Bureau of Land Management and the U.S. Forest Service. So as you can tell, there's a lot of folks here. So when that fire happened, we were able to tap into a much larger system to be able to bring those 100 firefighters from all around our area, and in fact, in our neighboring areas too, from Polk and from Lynn County. And I mean, it was all hands on deck, right? And we have this arrangement with all of our fire agencies. So to kind of give you a little bit of an understanding of how Benton County's fire agencies look in reality, this is the map. You can see all the different fire agencies that's represented here. And some of you would probably go, wait a minute, what's all that white space? And that is those are areas that are not particularly protected by the fire district or the fire department, mostly because these are forest lands. Yes. So we have our the Oregon Department of Forestry that is also partnered with us to kind of fill in that gap, if you would. And then there's still some gaps out there down by Greenberry and go out towards Monroe, where there just isn't any organized fire department, but we still respond. So something happens in Benton County, you're going to get the fire department there regardless. And we work together in partnership, as I say, to provide that service with everybody. We have some coordinating agencies that kind of look over. So from the state level, with the Office of the State Fire Marshal, which some of you may know are soon to be their own department. They're actually separating from as a bureau underneath the Oregon State Police into their own department that happens in July of this year. And they also then provide for incident management of wildland fires in the state and in fact, all hazards and other conditions. They've had, people respond to Florida for hurricanes, for example. Certainly number of cases where we sent people down into California or up into Washington. And they really do partner with us as the local fire agencies to recreate these response teams. So engines and brush rigs and tenders, crews and leaders. And we do that basically to be able to be deployed out on what's called the conflagration when we ever have large fires, such as this one, that start to get much bigger. Start thinking of things like the bootleg fire that we had a couple of years ago down in Southern Oregon. And the fire marshal's office has done some pretty spectacular things about looking ahead on how we can get ahead of instead of trying to chase the fire, to actually get ahead of it. Yeah. So they do something called pre-positioning in heightened threatened conditions, where they actually move personnel and equipment in anticipation that something could happen in a geographical area. So they're right on top of it if something breaks loose. And it's been extremely effective in doing that. The Fire Marshal's Office also provides grants to communities for risk reduction and also to fire agencies themselves. You may have read about this in the local paper that Corvallis Fire Department, Monroe Fire Department just received apparatus from the Fire Marshal's Office grants. Response capacities that basically give us more personnel during the summer months when it's fire season, so that we're adaptable and responsive to increased conditions. So a lot of what we're talking about today is, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, we'll get a little bit more into Q&A as we kind of get that far, but some of the things about what the local fire department, whether it's Corvallis or Monroe or Adair, we're all kind of the same voice here. So one of the things that we emphasize in our prevention side is to help us find you and be able to get to your property quickly. Yep. So reflective address posts, out on the main road. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but when it's 4 o'clock in the morning, it's a big deal. And we're trying to locate that fire. and we need to know how to get to you. All weather access roads, at least 12 feet wide and 16 to 20 feet for the newer homes that are being built in the county, able to hold 75,000 pounds, bridges and culverts inspected, because there's nothing like being able to get out there and then we sink into the mud. That doesn't do anybody any good. We're also looking at, working with the county when it comes to land development, so that we start thinking ahead now versus trying to play catch up on things like escape routes. We have what we have, and it wasn't well thought out perhaps in the past, but we're partnering now with our building officials and our land development officials to start saying, hey, you got to start thinking clearly now. I know a lot of people want to live in nice, pristine mountaintops and things like that, but we also have to be able to get them out and into safety. Having clear overhead to be able to get our apparatus down the road. Doesn't do us any good if the roof deck of the overlapping branches and things like that of your access road is at 10 feet. We can't fit under it, right? And then helping us identifying your local water supply. There's just a few of us, and this is a very large county. Our department alone is 58 square miles, which, we don't have a lot of time or resources to be able to comb all of that land and find all of the resources that are the water supply out there. So we rely on our residents to do that. And finally, keep the space around, do some preventive maintenance stuff. You'll hear more about that as we kind of roll out tonight, but clean out your gutters regularly, remove all your dead debris from around the homes and decks, know your evacuation routes, have a go kit ready to go. And most importantly, talk to your neighbors, you'll start hearing about Firewise communities and things of that nature tonight. And that all goes to being able to help us help you. And that's it, Kayla. Thank you.
That was lightning fast. Thank you. And just remember, we have this Q&A box or portal where you can ask questions. I know that Rich really was tip of the iceberg on a lot of things that might be of really big interest to all of you. So feel free to put questions in there, and if we don't get to them in written form, we will answer them live during the Q&A. And next up, we have Oregon Department of Forestry. We have Leo Williamson, the Protection Unit Forester. He's here to tell us about ODF's role in wildfire protection and how rural landowners can prepare. Your slides look great, Leo.
All right, thank you, Kayla, and thanks to everybody else who's showed up this evening. My name, again, is Leo Williamson. I'm the Protection Unit Forester here for the Oregon Department of Forestry's West Oregon District. So I'm the unit forester for the Philomath unit, which encompasses essentially the entirety of Benton County. Hence my context and what brings me so close to our topic here tonight. So let's just dive right in. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the context of what your local organization of the Oregon Department of Forestry is. And kind of what we do here, right? So we're responsible for wildland fire prevention and protection of just over 1 million acres within our district. And that district encompasses here in Benton County, Lincoln County, Polk County, and Southern Yamhill County. Just within that district, we have 3 separate unit offices. One located here in Philomath, which is our district headquarters where I work out of. We have a unit office in Dallas, and then we also have a unit office over in Lincoln County in Toledo. So this unit office here in Philomath, again, is responsible for wildland fire prevention and protection in Benton County, which is roughly 400,000 acres. It's a little bit over that number, but it's a large piece of ground. And like Rich said, a lot of our work has a lot of overlap, and I'll get to this here in the next slide, but there's a lot of overlap with our local fire districts and some of the other land management agencies who have land here within the county. And I'm going to continue to stress the, just the extreme collaboration that we have with those groups. And it's really what makes us successful during events like, Kayla mentioned the Timber Hill fire. She made the comment that it really is a success story. And I couldn't agree with her more there. It's never good to have fire on the landscape, and the easiest fire to start, or the easiest fire to fight, is the one that never starts, right? But unfortunately, things do happen, and the strong partnerships that we work to maintain 365 days a year, I think, are a true testament to the successes that we see out there like that. Within the West Oregon district, we employ around 30 seasonal crew members, fire crew members, each fire season. That's actually what I was doing today, was interviewing for this year's incoming fire crew, trying to fill our rosters there. And then we have a series of apparatus, a complement of engines that we will run here locally on the district. So we've got about 15 engines within the West Oregon district that are available for initial attack and extended attack firefighting. Again, I said, I think the real story of success here locally is the strength of our local and regional partnerships. And, I mentioned, touched briefly on that interaction with our local fire departments. But really what this is speaking to is what we refer to as the complete and coordinated system. And the complete and coordinated fire protection system is something that the Department of Forestry uses to describe the interaction between those local fire agencies, our forest landowners, our forest operators, the logging operators that work out there. It's really this statewide collaborative effort to, band together for the common good and provide wildfire protection to the people of Oregon. And I can't stress how effective that system is. We've seen it for over 100 years now, be a model for wildfire protection, not just within the state of Oregon, but nationwide. We're looked to as a very well organized group, and I can confidently say as an agency we're very good at what we do. Again, there's partnerships with folks with the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management, and then here at the state level, some of your other folks on the panel this evening from the Office of State Fire Marshal. It takes all players in this pool to put all the puzzle pieces together and make sure that we're successful in what we do when fire season inevitably comes around year after year. Another piece to this complete and coordinated system is our statewide pool of resources. So not only is it our local complement of resources here within the district, being our seasonal personnel, our permanent fire staff, and the engines that we have, but it's the statewide resource pool, right? So, I work for a state agency, and within that system, there's offices all throughout the state of Oregon that just as we're willing to go and help the folks down in Medford or over outside of Sisters put out their fires, they're willing to return the favor and happy to do so if we should need help over here on the west side of the hill. With that, we have our type 1 incident management teams. ODF has 3 fully rostered type 1 incident management teams to handle those fires, that the ones you typically see, on the news in the summertime in Southern Oregon and Eastern Oregon. And again, they're very good at what they do. Outside that, it's our contract pool of, other resources like crews, heavy equipment, aircraft, and then the elephant in the room, right, is the funding to pay for all of this, which is, another piece that ODF, through our structure of large fire funding, can help support fires both locally and throughout the state. Just to speak a little bit about our help further beyond Oregon, we have what we call compact agreements with other states. I've been on a handful of fires in my career here with the Department of Forestry. with firefighters from Washington, California, Mexico, Wyoming, all the way from the East Coast, folks from Australia. It's really funny to work with aircraft on the ground and hear an Australian voice talking to you on the radio from in the sky. That was a trip to experience. But again, it truly is just a group effort to make sure that everybody's got what they need to do the work that is so important for Oregonians. And then, just to kind of bring it home on our message here of sort of empowering our community to, be involved. We have partnerships with our local residents here. This could be anywhere from getting our community wildfire foresters out to your property to do an assessment. It could be answering the simple phone call to the office as to, what's our fire danger level today. But throughout this whole this annual reoccurrence of fire season, you as the local residents are really a large piece to the success there as well. So again, I think this drives home the spirit of our conversation this evening, and that's what can you do here? And just a few of many things that I think as residents of Benton County you can do and think about and bring to the table of fire prevention is utilize your local resources. Us here at the Oregon Department of Forestry, you're lucky to have an office like that, a resource like that in your backyard, just as you're very lucky to have a very well equipped and trained complement of local fire departments, the State Fire Marshal's office, OSU, and their extension service. So make sure you're utilizing those resources and tapping the expertise of the folks that are around you. Have a plan. And I think Brian's going to hit this pretty hard in a couple of presentations, but I would implore you to, think about what to do when the fire bell rings, so to speak. And again, reach out if you're not quite sure. Know your watch outs. I think I'm getting the sign from Kayla to wrap it up here, but know your watch outs, right? So like Rich said, understand your property and understanding what might be some challenges out there when, if and when, God forbid, a fire was going to impact your property. And, take the time to try to mitigate those problems on your property early, right? We're talking about making these areas defendable, making them resilient to a wildfire here within our own counties. So again, those are just, 4 things of a very large conversation that I think, you as residents can really, take ownership of to do your part in preventing wildfire within the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Leo. That's super helpful. And just so you all know, you'll meet 2 of your community wildfire foresters from Oregon Department of Forestry during the panel discussion as well. So Leo is well accompanied by those folks who could possibly come out and help you look at the fire risk on your property. Okay, next up, we are going to switch over to thinking about emergency management, and we have Brian Lee from he's our county emergency manager here with us. So Brian, you ready to rock and roll?
I am. Let me get this going here.
Looking good.
I'm falling in the same thing as Rich, trying to find all the millions of buttons. All right, so real quick, this will just be a quick overview of Benton County Emergency Management. And it's also combined, I won't steal Dave's thunder, but with the City of Corvallis Emergency Management component as well. They're technically separate programs, but we have a lot of combined efforts, mainly to streamline our efforts and be more efficient. I've been the Benton County Emergency Manager here for 5 years. And then previously I was in California. So that's just a little quick background. Emergency management really deals with a couple categories. There's really 4 sort of mission areas: mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. The mitigation component involves a lot of plans, grants, and projects. I actually put it in the chat, but one of the mitigation plans we're working on right now is called the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. That is a FEMA-approved plan. It's basically a list of shovel-ready projects that we can fund through various grants, or other initiatives that are out there. And there's actually a lot of FEMA grants specifically targeted towards mitigation. And those can be funded, and then they need to benefit community infrastructure or critical infrastructure of some kind. So a couple examples real quick would be something like putting power lines underground and things like that. So there's a lot of opportunity there. We're actually going to be putting out a survey as well as a feedback form for the community to weigh in on. So you can give us your thoughts, your concerns, just general feedback, and we can start incorporating some of those into projects for our plan update. So we are actively in the update process now. The plan should be finalized and adopted by the board probably around September or October this year. The other area, of course, which is what most of you are familiar with, is the preparedness component. We cover outreach. We have our community emergency response team, and the city of Corvallis also has one. And then we focus on a lot of pre-planning efforts and then sort of training exercises. On the response category, that is something that you guys have seen during the wildfires back in 2020, as well as COVID and some other flooding and other incidents. We really activate our emergency operations center. Benton County, combined with the city of Corvallis, has pretty much the most robust emergency operations center team program in the state. It's being modeled in Lane County and Marion County and in the Portland area. But we are proud to say we have about 120 staff members and volunteers basically on call or available for us to activate at any given time. And then also under response, both Dave Busby at the city of Corvallis and myself for the county are responsible for a lot of the aspects of alert and warning. So that's our Lynn Benton alert / Corvallis alert and sending out mass notification to the public. So that would be your evacuation notices or levels or kind of a stay away from this area kind of notifications, all of that. And so our systems are combined with Lynn County, so that way we can back each other up should we have some issue. And that can go to your cell phone, your home line, your email, etc. And we are utilizing the email more for notifications such as red flag warnings, increased fire weather behavior, all that sort of stuff. And then anything life-threatening or imminent, obviously we will send it to every contact point you have. However, each member of your household has to have their own profile. We'll talk about that in just a second. And then we do recovery. So recovery, as you can see in that little picture down below, is a multifaceted process and really takes years to do. And then incorporates a lot of various plans and agencies working together to rebuild the whole community. So real quick, a couple other plans I'll talk about is emergency operations plan. There's a base plan, which is very broad and sweeping, outlines general roles and responsibilities for the county and the city. And then we have various incident support and operational annexes. This is some example here of our operational or support annexes, like the EOC annex, mass care and sheltering annex, volunteer and donations, damage assessment, fuel management, communications, and the list goes on. So those are just plans, checklists, considerations for operations if we need to do those. I touched on the natural hazard mitigation plan. Again, that one is required. Actually, both the EOP and the natural hazard mitigation plan are required plans and that we are updating. We are going to begin our emergency operations plan update sometime in the fall. But again, we are actively doing the natural hazard mitigation plan as we speak. If you have questions or want to weigh in on that more, please email me or Dave Busby and we will get you the information for that. The last one is not actually a plan that's owned by emergency management, but we are heavily involved in. That's the community wildfire protection plan. And I think that's where a lot of folks on this webinar are most interested and have seen a lot of opportunities for input. This plan is owned by our community development at the county level and is also a list of shovel-ready projects that we can draw down on grant funding. Of course, through OSFM with some of the new grants. I know ODF draws down on some of it, and then there's other grants floating out there federally, such as the Community Wildfire Defense Grant and others that provide funding for those wildfire protection projects. So that's really your opportunity, especially when we're talking about wildfire, that specific incident, to really give your feedback and help weigh in on projects that you would like to see done in your community. And it's really outlined by different fire districts in different areas. So Leo talked about it, and of course Kayla did as well, regarding preparedness, go kits, and to just make a plan. This is a whole presentation, probably 4-hour presentation in and of itself, but suffice to say the baseline would be an initiative called the 2 weeks ready model. So 2 weeks of food, water, medications, first aid tools, important documents, things you might need to rebuild as a baseline. And then add into that defensible space and all the other wildfire preparedness activities. We encourage everyone to have at least a go bag, something you can grab in the middle of the night when it's dark and smoky and you get that alert, as well as potentially having your vehicle, especially during the summer, or potentially during the winter, during the cold months. So something that you can take with you that has about 72 hours and some base supplies and equipment to survive for a short period of time. We really want you to develop your own evacuation plans and reunification plans. Yes, previously we have done evacuation drills in the community and things like that. But really the fact of the matter is we don't know exactly where the fire is going to be. We don't know what roads are going to be open, what areas are going to be shut down for construction, or what traffic might look like. So what we really want folks to do is develop multiple evacuation plans, routes, ins and outs out of your neighborhood and out of your community area. For example, there's some community members that if they get evacuated into the edge of Corvallis, say Skyline West area, they might be immediately out of that short-term fire danger, but in the medium-term danger, they've just dropped themselves into a heavily, densely populated area on the edge of town that will also be getting ready to do evacuations. So we really want folks to think about what an evacuation model looks like, as well as how to reconnect with your family members. We also encourage everyone to get additional trainings and be part of an organization of some kind if possible. I mentioned CERT, so we have a community emergency response team for Benton County focused on the rural areas and regional cooperations. And then there's also the City of Corvallis and City of Adair CERT programs as well. And the idea behind CERT is that you're developing basic preparedness skills and some other skill sets and tools so you are more prepared to organize your neighborhood, your household, and your community. There's some other programs that have taken different names, but Map Your Neighborhood is one, basically sketching out your area, your hazards, your neighbors with different assets. And I don't necessarily mean equipment or physical assets, but I mean skill sets or special needs or additional needs that if they needed help evacuating, or maybe they don't have cell service, anything like that where someone might need additional support or have additional skill sets that might be useful in emergency. Former firefighters, former law enforcement, all of that. And then some other basic ones. First aid CPR is always a useful thing for a variety of tasks. And preparedness is really a mindset change that we want to encourage. Firewise USA is another one. I know a lot of you are from Firewise communities, but again, that's another way to organize yourself. And then taking steps around your home to have defensible space, fire adapted landscaping, home hardening, all the basic safety mitigation, strapping things down, etc. My last nugget here is on the Benton alert system. I kind of touched on it already. This is our mass notification system. It's powered by a software program called Everbridge. Each community member needs to have their own separate profile if you want all the members of the household to receive an alert. If you have questions on this, I know some folks don't necessarily use the internet. I have my number listed there, the 541-766-6864 number. You can call us and we can physically get you registered to make sure your contact point is good. If you want an individual test, we can do that as well. And then this tool, this mass notification tool, is really our number one source to get information out. There are, of course, all kinds of faults with it. It is technology, but this is our number one most useful tool to let folks know what's going on. During big evacuations, our only other option is door-to-door or loudspeaker messaging, which is not the most efficient and is very labor intensive. The other thing here that this tool can be used with is a software program called Zonehaven. I know some of you are probably very excited to hear that. We are working on a trial. Both Dave Busby and myself and Chelsea Chitka are really reviewing Zonehaven as a viable planning tool for us on the emergency management side. So we haven't entered a full contract. We're in a trial period, but we might engage in that and then tie that into our Benton alert system. And then again, to register, there's a link there that we'll share out. You can also email us at emergencymanagement@bentoncountyoregon.gov or give us a call and we'll happily get you registered or check your profile, make sure everything's working for you. And of course, I'll be on the panel, but there's my contact information. I will say if you are trying to call me or get a hold of me, email is best, or cell phone number that I have listed there. I'm rarely sitting at my desk, so please feel free to email or call. And otherwise, I'll be on the panel for the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. That's really helpful and hopefully generated a lot of thoughts and ideas from people. And we're going to keep with the emergency management theme and switch over to Dave Busby, who's the emergency planning manager for Corvallis Fire and Rescue. I'm going to pull up slide. Dave, is that right for you? Or do you want all three pictures?
All three's fine.
Okay, coming at you. Hang on here.
That was kind of the way it worked in my head. I was so close and I tried to close chat and I closed out my thing. So then I have to follow Brian now. So that's my pride. So I'm excited and I want to thank, like you did, Kaylee, the 98 people that are spending their time here right now, the 97, somebody just clicked off. This is the important stuff. And it sounds really good to have 97 people on here. We really need to talk to all 70,000. So someday we'll figure out how to do that. I can tell you, just sitting in the seat for Corvallis Fire and working with this organization for the last 5 years, 2022, I never felt better going into a wildfire season than I did last year when we had red flag days. We had done a tabletop exercise for the last 2 years with all of the response agencies. This partnership that everybody talks about is real and it's genuine. Sitting down with Leo and sitting down with Brent and sitting down with the State Fire Marshal's office and all of the folks that would help us, and a lot of the folks that were involved in the Timber Hill fire, which is a good example of it can happen here. And really, hammered through all of the lines communication. Jurisdiction is not a problem, the authority and all of the other stuff. If you've ever worked with response agencies, there's a lot of alpha type personalities in there. That was not an issue, and it's still not an issue. It is all about the fire agencies working together to support and help the communities that they work for. So my particular area of interest, everything that Brian said, I've been directly involved in. It's pretty amazing to sit back and watch that. And I am pretty proud of our Emergency Operations Center incident management team. We have about 70 to 80 city and counties employees working together to solve problems in a disaster. We train monthly, we exercise quarterly, we work with our partner agencies and all of those kinds of things. So this was the lightning round. Some of us had lightning and thunder, but I'm going to keep mine to lightning. So it's already been said, but the evacuation plan, what you see here is that line of vehicles is the Latter-day Saints Church on Harrison Boulevard. They were wonderful community partners. They allowed us to use their facility. We set up a temporary evacuation point. And really what Brian and I were trying to do when we did this was look at it from a community planning perspective. What do we need for staffing to make that happen? And what do we need for the logistics, all of the equipment? And then how long would it take us to get that set up? If we had to evacuate the community, how long would it take? And really the answer was 2 to 6 hours realistically to get that properly staffed and then put notice out. So it's not fast enough for short-term evacuation situations, but if we have something big or long-term, then setting up a resource center is probably more realistic. But those are the kinds of value that we got out of working through 3 community evacuation exercises now. We started in 2019 with an evacuation exercise, and Carrie Berger, our host here, was kind of a driver, worked with me, and we set it up for Skyline West. With her efforts in the Firewise team that they had up there, John Crocta and I can't remember the other ones, but there was a couple more. Anyways, we had a great exercise and we evacuated Skyline West and they went down to the Northwest Hills Community Church. We did a debrief. We had police department there representing what they would do and what they're worried about. We had EMS there. And had a debrief right there in the parking lot. 2020 was the COVID year, so we struck that exercise for the safety of the community, and rightfully so. And then 2021, we started back up. We had all kinds of neighborhoods, so Grand Oaks, West Hills. I'll probably leave a few out. I have a list here somewhere, but it was about 8 neighborhoods. And we walked through the process, and that's where this picture is actually coming from. That was the first year that we tested a forest evacuation route, and we identified some problems there, and we still have some work to do. The gate sitting here is one of the problems that we identified. If you see that picture and it talks about dial 911, In a true evacuation, dial 911 is probably not going to work. The dispatcher is going to be busy. So we have found some solutions for some of those gates and still working on solutions for others. But from a community standpoint, and this goes back to my own personal history, I was a wildfire evacuee and I learned a lot. And what we try and offer with that, it was never about us showing you where to evacuate. The temporary evacuation point was only a test of that concept and not a like predetermined notion. As Brian said, we won't know where the disaster is going to strike. We need you to be familiar with every route that you have into and out of your area. We need you to understand the forest evacuation routes. One of the things we learned was that not large vehicles or vehicles with trailers, not the best way to go. Also plan ahead and plan to leave early. So when you look at these level 1, be ready. If we get the luxury of having a level 1 alert and a level 2 alert, be set is about the time for, if you're in a traffic constricted area, it's about the time you should be thinking about leaving early and getting to the location that you identify that you want to go stay at. We can tell you with the software now, it's going to be a much better process and all of that's going to be rolled out. So all of this to say, we're still working on this. We have a good partnership going with this community. We have a good partnership going with all of our response agencies here. The state fire marshal is going through a lot of change and a lot of things are being figured out. Home assessments is one area where we're figuring that out. And I think there'll be more to follow from somebody else, so I'll leave that alone. I just want to close with asking each one of you to know your process. Be aware of this. Be aware of things like red flag days. Be aware of all of the things that you can do. We are going to do an evacuation workshop. Brian and I are working on that with a date we have is June 22nd. Which is a Thursday evening, 6 to 8 p.m. We'll do another webinar here, and we'll also be briefing on Zone Haven and where we are at with that program at that point. So we have a lot going on, but happy to answer any questions and look forward to the next phase of this. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dave. Will that evacuation workshop be open to the public?
Yeah, we are going to try and get everybody in the world into that evacuation workshop because that's an important discussion.
Great. And will it be virtual?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, we look forward to hearing more about that.
Won't be as good as this one because you guys are doing it, but we'll try.
Well, high bar. So finally, this is our last lightning talk, and we've saved one of my favorites. This is my colleague here at the OSU Extension Fire Program, Carrie Berger. Carrie wears many hats, and one of her volunteer efforts has been to support her neighborhood in preparing for wildfire through the Firewise program. So she's coming to us today in that capacity, and she's here to share her story about how her neighborhood has really rallied around fire preparedness. So go for it, Carrie.
Well, Kayla, thank you for that amazing introduction. I really appreciate that. And before I share my slides, I just want to reflect a minute on what Dave just talked about in terms of the evacuation exercise in 2019 with Skyline West. I helped prepare and plan for that. But I have to say, the morning I got the evacuation notice, I felt sick to my stomach. I was so nervous. I was shaking. And I just appreciate that experience so much because it caused me to go through those experiences, those feelings. I loaded my kids, my go bags, my animals, and now I don't feel that way. I mean, certainly it would probably be different in a real experience, but the more I practice, Kayla, I'm noticing over the years, like I don't get that nervous feeling anymore. So thank you, Dave, and everybody involved in that. Just such a good experience. So let me go ahead and try sharing my screen. Let's see here. There are a lot of buttons to push. And does that look good?
Yep.
Alrighty then. Well, like Kayla said, my name is Carrie Berger and I'm the Firewise leader in my neighborhood in Skyline West, but I want to pause a moment to highlight that I'm only one of many community leaders who are doing really good work in fire preparedness in their neighborhoods in Benton County. So shout out to all of those neighborhoods. Nearly 10 years ago, when I moved into my neighborhood in Skyline West, not many of my neighbors, including myself, thought about or were prepared for wildfire. After all, we live on the west side of the Cascade Mountain Range in a valley with relatively wet conditions most of the year. But as we heard from Kayla at the beginning, temperatures are increasing and our summers are getting hotter and drier. More people are living in forested areas and there are more human ignitions. The Timber Hill fire that she mentioned that happened in 2014 was definitely a wake-up call for me, both professionally and personally. After that fire, I started to look at my neighborhood just a little bit differently. Well, I still saw the beauty in all the vegetation and the hilly topography we have here. I also saw the risk. My neighborhood is bordered on 3 sides by forest lands and then grasslands to the west of us. At the time, there were no fire hydrants and there was only one way in and one way out of the neighborhood. So I'm here tonight to share with you my experience as a homeowner and the Firewise leader in my neighborhood. Now, where I live likely won't match exactly where you live, but I hope that by sharing my experiences, you can take little nuggets from my presentation and apply them to your story. And I think I'm behind on a slide, so here's the no fire hydrants. I'll start and end my presentation the same way, with the most important point. We, meaning me, you, my neighbors, your neighbors, Rich, Leo, Dave, Brian, and the other fire response and forest and fire management people on this webinar and beyond, we are in this together. Collectively, we have a role to play to be ready for wildfire, even here in Benton County. Fast forward to today in 2023, and each of my neighbors is doing their part to reduce their wildfire risk. So how did this happen? How did my neighbors go from not being prepared to being prepared? Well, we started with education, like what you're doing here tonight. You're curious, you're listening in, you might even be taking notes. That's how we started too. We also got people's email addresses and created a listserv. We used the listserv to provide information about wildfire and neighborhood safety in general. Over the last 10 years, my neighborhood has done a lot of great work. And in the interest of time tonight, I'd like to highlight a couple of key accomplishments. To start, we've reduced the vegetation around our homes. Vegetation is fuel and fire likes fuel. So I'll say again, vegetation is fuel and fire likes fuel. We follow the national Firewise principles for preparedness, like raking leaves, removing dead branches, cleaning roofs and gutters of needles and debris, and a lot more. I encourage you to check out their website, but I also recognize this Firewise program may not work for everyone. Additionally, we apply for grants to support work parties and dumpster days, and we engaged with the local emergency management and fire departments, as Dave suggested in that evac exercise. Importantly, we came together as a community. One final key accomplishment that I'd like to share was that we addressed our egress issue. You might recall the photo at the beginning that showed only one way in and one way out of the neighborhood. By being present at city meetings, that was us, the neighbors, and working with city officials, we were able to highlight the importance of an additional egress And as part of a new development near our neighborhood, the developer was required to add a connector road into our neighborhood. Preparedness is planning for the before, during, and after an event, and working with your neighbors and your community, including fire departments, emergency managers, community emergency response team members, local government, business owners, you name it. We, meaning me, you, my neighbors, your neighbors, the fire response and forest and fire management people on this webinar and beyond, we are in this together. Thank you, Kayla.
Thanks so much, Carrie. That's such a positive and light note to end our lightning talks on. And now I'm going to invite all of our panelists and presenters to come onto the screen, turn on your videos if you're able. And I will share my screen in a minute when I load it up properly. Okay. And we have a good chunk of time now for Q&A with our presenters and panelists. So in addition to the speakers that you've just heard from, we have a bunch of other folks on the call now that I want to introduce to you who make up part of our fire community here in Benton County. So we have 2 community wildfire foresters from the Oregon Department of Forestry. That's Trask Hodgson and Jacob Rule. You guys can wave. Yeah, cool. Nice. And we also have 2 representatives from the Office of the State Fire Marshal. We have Brent Griffith, the mobilization coordinator. Hi, Brent. Great. And Tony Miller, the Deputy State Fire Marshal. Hi, Tony. Thanks for being here. And we also have Tesla Barkdahl, the Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT, Program Manager for Benton County. Hi, Tesla. Cool. All right, so for those of you who have been in the audience, take 1 minute to stretch a little. It's been an hour. Maybe you're done with dinner by now. And we are here to answer your questions. So I know my co-organizers have been doing almost too good of a job answering questions throughout. But I have a couple of questions to sort of clarify who's who and what y'all do. So I'm going to start with Trask or Jacob. What does an ODF community wildfire forester do?
Okay, so as a community wildfire forester, we try to assist in things like this. And thank you for Kayla and Carrie for kind of spearheading this. First and foremost is just outreach and education about wildfire prevention around, your home's property, how to properly burn, dispose of debris, who to call, for different resources, whether it's utilizing one of our grants that we may have in one of your areas, like we have in Monroe, closing up one in Wren right now, and then finding other avenues for possible funding, which is definitely difficult and can be confusing. It's confusing for us too. But yeah, and then during the fire season, we're also tied to fire still, being an ODF employee. So we're also helping the fire crews, doing training and assisting on local fires and fires across Oregon. Jake may have some other things to add.
Yeah, just on the fact that we administer with 6 Firewise communities within our Benton County area, and then there's another 7th one that is unofficial, but they still are very active within our area. So we help with that coordination process of getting them up to date on all of their stuff.
Great. Thanks so much, both of you. Yeah, so it sounds like you all would be, if a group of neighbors wanted to start a Firewise community, you would be the people to reach out to. Yeah, cool. Great. And let's go ahead with Chesla. Can you tell us what CERT is all about and how other residents of Benton County might engage with CERT teams?
Sure. Hi, I'm Chesla. The CERT program is a national program that educates community members in how to be prepared for disasters that are specific to their areas. We in Benton County, we have a handful of local hazards that are flooding, wildfire. We've seen some of these things come through. We all, experienced the pandemic as well. And the CERT program educates people in 8 units that are basic response and how we can prepare ourselves for medical response, which is a little more than first aid, fire suppression, utility control, light search and rescue. They found that people respond when something happens. We look out for each other when first responders and professional responders are not available to us. And we want to make sure that the actions that we take in a situation like that keep us safe and keep our families and neighborhoods safe as well. So Benton County CERT does that, Corvallis CERT does that. We have Adair as well, and there will be more CERT programs. And so it benefits the whole community. We are independent groups, but when it comes down to something happening, we have 2 big examples. The 2020 wildfire season, where we had evacuation centers in Lynn County and Benton County, that brought in CERT members and volunteers from multiple different programs. And what we have in common is when we get there, we're like-minded, we're there to serve and to help. And we know our own training and we know how to work within that team dynamic to help people. The other was during COVID. CERT programs came together, members came together and worked in alignment to make those, there were numerous different COVID programs going on throughout the county. So that's something that we have to offer the community, and we invite anyone to be to come and learn more about it. Like I said, there's 3 different programs so far. There will be more, and anyone is welcome to join us. We just encourage it because it supports resiliency and building that strength within our community.
Thanks so much. So yeah, for those of you who are interested in supporting your community and preparedness, you know who to reach out to. It sounds like they're accepting applications. Great. I'm seeing some questions coming in that we could probably answer live. There's one question about support from trained personnel to do home assessments. And I know that varies whether you're within city limits or in a more rural area. So why don't we start with Dave with the Corvallis Fire and Rescue, who might have a thought about the capacity available to help people do home assessments in Corvallis. I know the mute button is really hard to find.
I found it. Yay. So all I would say is anybody that's interested in home assessments from the Corvallis Fire District footprint or the Corvallis Rural Fire Protection District, there's a lot of changes going on with home assessments, but we're still able to do them until we figure it out. Trask and I, Jake and I had just done 2 of them for neighborhoods, but the state fire marshal is working diligently to get all of that policy and procedures in place. So things are going to change, but for right now, until that all gets figured out, if they send me an email and we'll see what we can do and answer your questions, especially a homeowner that's looking for individual properties.
Thanks, Dave. Rich, do you want to jump in, Philomath?
I was just going to say, yeah, so we here in Philomath, we also provide that service as well. And basically in terms of assessment, on and around the property and the house, and happy to do that anytime. It is, as Dave mentioned, there's going to be more formalized processes about that and having trained personnel to be able to do that. And I know that Kayla, you will mention a little bit about the follow-up events that are going to be coming up here shortly, that we're going to start looking at train the trainer type options and to expand this conversation rapidly. Yep.
Thanks. And I wanted to give ODF an opportunity to jump in on the assessment tool or assessment conversation about rural landowners who might want assessments not only of their defensible space, but maybe of their acreage as well.
Yeah, I think I can jump in there and also tag on and answer a question we received from Marianne as well. So yeah, our community wildfire foresters here within the district are available for assistance on your rural properties for home and landscape assessment. So we have a couple of different skill sets here within our district that can help with that. I mentioned one, which was our community wildfire foresters. But another piece of that is our stewardship foresters here, who typically work with our forest operators and logging on private property within Benton County. But they're another great resource to help you start to digest what seems to be a daunting task for some folks, which is for just general forest management on your property. So we provide those services free of charge to the folks in Benton County. And if that's something that you're interested in on your property, please give us a call here at the Philomath office, and we'll help direct your call and get you the help that you need.
Great. Thanks so much, Leo. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see here. So we have a question about evacuation and specific evacuation routes that are available. This participant is asking about Oak Creek Valley. Let's see, perhaps that would be a Brian question.
Sorry, unmuting there. Let's see, I'm scrolling through.
A potential map of fire evacuation routes available in Oak Creek.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say we made a bunch of those when we were doing the evacuation drill. So we had our county GIS map some of those out. So we're happy to share those. I think Ann Isinger might still have them. If not, I'm happy to track them down and get them over to you, Gloria. But we can pencil out some possible routes. Some of those routes are closed and gated, but we can work out maybe a time to test out those routes on an annual basis. So more to come on that. And if you reach out to me and or Dave Busby, we can get you those maps. Dave, do you still have those maps by chance?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do. And I was also going to mention one of the elements of Zone Haven is getting working groups together before we roll it out. And we are going to be scheduling those late in May to make sure. So Gloria, you would be a welcome participant in one of those working groups that we can take a look at your maps and make sure they make sense to the people that live there.
Great, thanks both of you. Okay, we have another question about Ridgewood community. Me being new to the area, I don't know where that is. But the question is, if the community's on a community well, does the fire department have access to the well, or does water need to be trucked in for fire response? Who might know?
I think I know. I would have to take this question and go back to the lieutenant and probably somebody here that's up in this station one here. But I can get an answer. I just don't have it at my fingertips. I saw that question and I was about ready to answer that. But yeah, Gloria, if you reach out to me directly on your community well, I know we have them all mapped out, and they do surveys all the time to make sure that the water sources that we have identified are still there. They're not overgrown, blah, blah, blah. So we will go routinely check those out. So I can check into that and get back to you. And Gloria, if I forget, please get back to me.
Great. Rich?
Yeah, I was going to add to that too, just for everybody's information. So one of the things that we bring in the fire service is the departments have something called water tenders, which range anywhere between 1,000 and 3,000 gallons of water. So we literally do have mobile water supplies. The big thing about noting where some of these water sources is to be able to refill these apparatus when they run out of water. And we could do that also through local streams and things of that nature. We can actually draft the water right out of that to replenish stuff. It's just having the opportunity to take water that's readily available and readily accessible saves a lot of time in being able to get water to where it needs to go. And on top of that, we also have the resources behind us with the Department of Forestry and the Fire Marshal's office to be able to order up resources, including helicopters and things of that nature. If the fires are of that nature, that we need that kind of resource. And that's what these agencies do very well. They locate what we need. I had a question earlier about bulldozers and things of that nature. Those contractors are already, identified ahead of time so that we can tap into them. And the fact of the matter is that the community just jumps in. It's like, hey, I've got this, or I've got water, or I've got, and it's pretty amazing and how things happen here. That's one of the things I was very happy to see moving into the area myself 8 years ago.
Great, thanks so much, Rich. This is I'm loving the questions coming in. They're specific to Benton County. This is exactly what we wanted, is to provide all of you that are here with basically a roster of all of the experts in the area that can answer your questions on these really specific areas. So we have another one about evac. It looks like a potential closure on Coffin Butte Road through the landfill out from Soap Creek Valley. If that road is closed, it looks like there's a question about alternatives. And they're wondering, if there's any additional information. Brian, great.
I will try to answer that, even though I honestly I'm not super involved in the trash talks. So obviously, based on the Planning Commission's decision to deny Republic's request to close the road and expand the landfill, the Community Development Department spun up a whole new initiative called Benton County Talks Trash, or Trash Talks. And they were going to dive in and they have panel members and a whole committee. They're doing outreach and doing a podcast. They're doing all kinds of stuff. I honestly don't know every bit of it, but I know that it is not a said and done. They're going to close it and build over it. So there's a lot more dialogue to happen with that. And if you guys are interested, please follow up and we can get you the information to those discussions and that podcast that they're launching. But it's a big topic. The commissioners are well aware the community was not happy with how that process went. And so they are more than happy to engage in it. And the new community development director, Darren Nichols, is actually going about it really the right way. And it's a long ongoing process of community engagement. So a lot more to come in the future. But that's where it was left. So it's still very much open. The discussion's not all said and done. There's a lot more happening with it. That's all I know about it right now.
Thanks, Brian, for sharing that update. And Marion, we have a question about procedures for rural landowners with small woodlands to follow, to guide them through the process of identifying their fire risks, getting them referrals to who can help, and learning about funding. ODF will be your go-to folks for that. And typically I would say OSU Extension Forester at the county level is also a really good person to guide you through that process. Right now, our forester for Benton County recently retired, and we are actively filling the position for that county forester. So stay tuned for a new friendly face of OSU Forestry in Benton County. And until then, I know that Trask, Jacob, and Leo are all there for you in terms of guiding you through that process, because I know it can be a really challenging kind of endeavor. And I don't know if ODF wants to say anything else about that, or a thumbs up if not.
Nope, you nailed it, Kayla. And I mentioned just previously, if there's questions about forest management in general too, whether that's fuels mitigation focused or not. That's another whole division of our agency that's solely dedicated to providing that assistance as well.
Thanks, Leo. Okay, we're coming near the end of our webinar time, and I think we've actually answered all of the questions, or there may be more now. Let me just make sure. Well, let's answer a couple more. Here we go. Marion asks, any news on how and when the federal funds identified for wildfire resilience will be used in our area? I wonder if one of our OSFM folks, or let's see, who's got a hand up?
I had my hand up. I can partially answer because I was typing out an answer to that one. And then I'll turn it over to OSFM because they probably have fresher information. So federal funds, there might be some available through that ODF draws down on, like the Western States grants and things like that. In terms of Title I, Title II, and Title III funds that the county receives, they divert pretty much all that to Title I, which is roads and development of rural schools, and Title II, which is projects on federal land, and the county really doesn't get Title III funds. We have a very small amount of federal land. And then the Community Wildfire Defense Grant, which is administered to the USDA, funnels sort of through in conjunction with ODF in partnership with the county. We didn't actually apply for that last year. It's a competitive grant. So there's a lot of discussion about that. And that grant, they just awarded, or let people know about it in, I believe, last month. So that grant should be opening again, I think in July or August. I would defer to Jake or Trask on that, but sometime late summer, and then it'll usually be open till like October-ish timeline. Again, that one's competitive. It's a nationwide deal. There's a lot of parameters around it, but then there are grant opportunities with the Oregon State Fire Marshal's office from Senate Bill 762. So different fire districts were offered $10,000 to conduct community outreach, create publications, all kinds of different things like that. I don't have an exhaustive list of who took OSFM up on that, but there were some that did. And there's also the Community Wildfire Risk Reduction Grant that was put out there, which is an amazing opportunity. Cities were eligible to apply, fire districts were eligible to apply, and counties were eligible to apply, each with different dollar amounts, but very large projects. And they were supposed to have that done in March, but I believe they received an overwhelmingly large number of applications. So they're supposed to have that done by the end of April and let applicants know if they got it or if they got partial funding, etc. So that's what I got for you on that. There's probably a few other nuggets in there I missed, but I would defer to OSFM or ODF for any other grant info.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. I want to leave a quick opportunity for OSFM to share anything they'd like to share there. But you think, or if Brian covered it all, just give me a thumbs up. Okay. Brian? Good? Okay.
No, I was going to say I'm not in the loop on any of that information, unfortunately, being from the response side. I was going to defer to Tony if he had anything.
All right, sounds good. All right, well, with that, I think the final questions there are being answered by the quick fingers of this team doing these written answers. And I'm going to share my screen once again for a little bit of wrap up. So I want to appreciate all of the presenters and panelists who have, taken their evening tonight to be with us and share this information and answer questions and all of that. And as a thank you to them, I was thinking that it would be fun for all of the attendees who are here to share one action item that you will take to prepare yourself, your home, or your family for wildfire season. And I promise this will make the whole kind of fire professional community in Benton County feel good that all of us are in this together. So go ahead and share those in the chat. Just one thing, it can be little or big, that you plan to do to prepare yourself for fire. Let's see if anything comes in.
And Kayla, just to note that earlier the chat was disabled. I'm not sure that it's properly working. So
okay.
if you can't use the chat, go ahead. I do see some things coming into the Q&A on that.
Yeah,
okay.
I see some comments in the Q&A saying the chat is still not
Sorry, Marshall. Thank you for letting us know that the chat's still broken. I see in the Q&A going to get small mesh screening on the vents around the house. Awesome. Yeah, we recommend 8-inch metal screens. So yes, that's a great task. Clearing more woods around the house. Awesome, working on that defensible space. Identifying a meeting place in case of a disaster or emergency. I love that part of your evacuation planning. Working on pruning and tree branches, lopping them off. Go bags, med kits, extra non-perishable food, so prepping for an emergency. Advocate for burial of power lines. Yeah, you know, showing up at community meetings, talking to your utilities, you know, all of those things are really significant action items that you can do, not only for yourself, but on behalf of your community. I love it. Measuring my driveway, great, to make sure it's accessible. Yeah, and remember, Carol, that you have resources available to you to support you in that. Evacuation plans, Firewise events, gutters, oh my gosh, so many, I can't even read them all. Nice job, everybody. Feel free to keep scrolling through that Q&A so that you can get good ideas from your neighbors and other community members as we kind of wind down tonight. So in addition to your actions, we encourage you to really take a deeper dive into this topic of fire preparedness by checking out this whole series of webinars that the OSU Fire Team has offered over the last couple of years. And they can all be found on our YouTube channel. You can use your phone to scan that QR code to access that channel, and Carrie will put it in the chat as well, if it's working. And otherwise, you can just go to the extension, OSU Extension Fire Program website, and you can find it right there. We also have resource packets there so if you prefer to read as opposed to attending webinars, we got you covered. And finally, oh, go ahead, Carrie.
Kayla, I just want to mention also that coming up already this month and into the month of May, and it might even roll into June, OSFM is hosting webinars on a whole variety of topics. And I'm going to go ahead and put that link to their webinar page. Those will be webinar format, live like this, not recorded, but then recorded. So OSU's are recorded. You can watch them right now, and OSFM's is coming up.
Yeah, awesome. So tomorrow's webinar with OSFM is Defensible Space, 12 o'clock. And on Thursday at 12 o'clock, myself and a colleague from OSU Extension are going to be presenting on home hardening in the OSFM webinar series. So look forward to seeing you all there too. And, you know, as we finally wind down tonight, we really put a big emphasis on being able to provide education to the community that is what you need, what you want, and how you want to hear it, right? So we've offered this webinar, and we really want to know what you think about it. And we have a 4-question, 1-minute evaluation that really won't take you much time to fill out, but really means a lot to us in terms of our ability to continue improving the type of educational resources that we offer through OSU Extension and with all of our partners here in Benton County. So the QR code is there, and we will also send a follow-up email with this video recording and all of the links that you would need to do evaluation, to check out additional resources, everything. One-stop shop. Okay, and with that, I think it's time to call it a night. Thank you again for taking this evening to learn about fire preparedness and response in the county. Thank you all, presenters and panelists, for being with us tonight and sharing your expertise. And we really look forward to future gatherings to deepen our learning about this together. So have a good night.